Chapter 10. Sicilian Fantasy. He could hear someone singing. The song was echoing endlessly in his ear, but ever so faintly, a soft whisper on the wind. He couldn't tell how long he'd been listening to it. Huh? Fugo looked up. He was in a room, lined in bookshelves stuffed with old books. A classroom at the Università di Bologna. There was an angry professor in front of him, lecturing him.
What are you thinking? Do you think you can get away with neglecting fundamental classes? Don't look away! I'm talking to you!
Fugo met his eye, and the professor nodded.
I expect more from you, Fugo. You have a bad habit of acting like you're only here because your parents made it happen. But your parents aren't you, and you aren't your parents. You aren't learning to improve your parents' status, but to unlock your own potential.
The door opened, and the professor's assistant came in. I have some bad news, Fugo. Your grandmother's collapsed. You should go to her. The professor helped him get a ticket for an express train, and he was home before the day was out.
Oh, my little punny. I feel so much better with you here.
His grandmother made a full recovery. All his family had come to see her, and they all looked so happy to see her well again. Fugo was relieved. They were a family, after all. They really did love each other. School holidays were almost here. The university agreed to let him stay at home as long as he mailed in his final papers. He did so, and went fishing with his brothers. When they reached the harbor, they found the fishing boats they'd reserved had broken down, and was stuck in the harbor. While they were trying to figure out what to do, another captain offered them a ride on his vessel, but the clients he had already booked objected.
We asked you not to bring anyone else.
There's plenty of room for everybody.
I say there isn't. Do as I say.
Fine then. You get off. When another ship's in trouble, we help out. Law of the sea.
What?
The rude customer realized a crowd was gathering and gave up the fight, grumbling to himself. The captain beckoned Fugo and his brothers on board.
The son will be happy to help you kids out. Bruno?
Yes, Dad. A bright-looking boy came out of the cabin. The boy's name was Bruno Bucci. He was about 3 years older than Fugo. You're going to college? Wow. It's no big deal. I try and educate myself with books, but it's pretty slow going. What are you reading? Machiavelli. The Prince? I guess you've already read it. I'm pretty big on history. I know it's based on Cesare Borgia, but I don't think Machiavelli was as Machiavellian as it's made out to be. He was more of a forward-thinking realist. He warned against overthinking things, and advised people to do what they could with what their reach extended to. That's quite a theory. Not what you expected from a fisherman's son. I didn't exactly expect it, but it doesn't sound strange coming from you. If you put it that way, you don't exactly seem like a typical aristocrat. You weren't haughty at all. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Can I ask your advice on something? Something about this boy put Fugo at ease, and he found himself sharing all his troubles. Bucci listened intently. They grew closer and became firm friends. Whenever Fugo came home from university, he dropped in to visit Bucci. One day, Bucci's father came to Fugo.
Lately, the police have been asking questions. They think I'm mixed up in drugs somehow.
Somehow?
I don't want to say bad things about the other captains, but at least a few of the fishing boats are helping smuggle them in. Should I share what I know with the cops?
Sounds risky to me. If the mob finds out you snitched, they'll cause trouble for you.
That's what my son says. You know lots about laws and things, don't you? Could you help him?
I'll do my best. This was how Fugo found himself stepping closer to the underworld. Bucci had always been popular and soon drew others to his side. He saved a boy named Narancia from being sent to prison for a crime he'd been wrongfully accused of, and he persuaded a policeman named Abacchio that he was better off staying clean and not accepting bribes. Both became friends. Alongside a young man named Mista who enjoyed their company, they became a team of sorts. Everyone knew them. They weren't part of any syndicate, and the townsfolk trusted them completely. The gangsters decided it was easier to leave them be. "Fugo, you should be more adventurous," Narancia said. Mr. laughed. "You'll want to talk. You won't even taste anything you think you don't like. We went out for seafood the other night, and you ate nothing but fruit." "Shut up, I like fruit." "Being a picky eater is a sign you're still a kid." "I'm not a kid." Abacchio straightened his uniform. "You should eat better, Narancia. You're so skinny. Pasta or pizza, or whatever, just eat more. And stop ordering cheese and mushrooms. You need some meat. Beef or pork. They'll help you grow." "Look, I'm not small. You're just stupid tall, Abacchio. And scary." "I'm a cop." "Not much of one. You're always skipping work to hang with us. You spend all your time here, they'll never promote you." "Like I want that? You get promoted based on test scores. And the tests are rigged. I get more done helping Bucci. Being here is better than being on patrol." "Tests? You making fun of Fugo?" "Narancia," Fugo said, shaking his head. "I only study that hard because it helps Bucci. When people make fun of him for not going to school, he can say I'm top of my class at Bologna." "Gah, you ruin everything." "Well, Narancia, you're first in your class too, right?"
"Yeah, if we count from the bottom up."
"Hey! No, seriously, I heard you got an award for volunteer work. It was in the newspaper." "Well, believe it or not, it wasn't intentional." Ordinary conversation, an everyday dinner. "So, why did it feel so precious?" "Because only people whose lives are so full can ever experience this happiness." Fugo gave thanks to heaven that they had made all the right choices. As they all laughed, Bucci came out of his room. "What's up, Bucci? What'd you call us all here?" "Well, there's someone I'd like you to meet." He opened the door and beckoned them in. It was a girl. There was a fierceness to her face, but a smile on her lips. "She's been helping me out lately. Her name's Trish Una." She looked at each of them and bowed her head.
"Trish, the daughter of the Passione Foundation's head. If you've heard of her, I don't have to explain. We're gonna be working with the Foundation."
Trish bowed once again and took a basket out from behind her back. It contained slices of cake neatly wrapped in plastic.
"Look at this. She's baked this as a token of our new connection."
Narancia grabbed the first piece, excitedly. Abacchio and Bruno helped themselves as well.
"Oh, that looks good,"
Mr. said, and reached out, taking a slice. Fugo stared at him. "Mister?"
"What?"
Are you sure that doesn't bother you?"
"Why would it?"
"But you were the fourth person to take a slice of cake. You always avoid the number 4. The expression drained from Mister's face. He looked like a doll. Fugo looked hastily around. Narancia and Abacchio had turned into dolls as well. Lifeless, empty husks, sitting frozen in one position. "What the?"
"You're locked in,"
Bucci said quietly, but it wasn't Bucci's voice. It was an old man's. "You're Vladimir Kokaki."
"You're in a dream you'll never wake from."
Wrinkles began appearing on Bucci's face. He was aging rapidly. Fugo reached out, but Bucci was drifting quickly away. The cake slipped from Fugo's finger. When it touched the floor, it shattered like glass, as did the ground beneath his feet. He fell into nothingness.
"You'll never escape. You'll fall forever."
The singing continued. It sounded like Vitti na Crozza sung rather poorly. Fugo didn't recognize the voice. Kokaki's shrill laugh echoed as if trying to drown it out, surrounding him. Have I been under his spell all along? Ever since the Teatro Greco? Had he only imagined defeating him? If that was true, he was done for. There was no way out. But no, that's not true. Fugo concentrated on the feeling that he was falling. He wasn't just falling, he was spinning. He was in a tailspin. This was different. It wasn't the same sensation as the one Kokaki had locked in. He could feel it shifting, changing. Then I must be... He was falling for real. So were these dolls of his friends, including Trish. She must be Sheila E. As he fell, Fugo reached out towards her, like videos he'd seen of skydivers linking hands. His fingers brushed against her cheek, and he grabbed it between his fingers, pinching her hard. The pain in her cheek woke Sheila E. The helicopter was out of control, in a tailspin, plunging towards the ground. Fugo was in the seat next to her, his arm outstretched, pinching her cheek. He was still under the spell. The stimulus from outside wasn't enough to wake him. He pinched her in his sleep. Sheila E. scrambled forward, yanking her cheek free of Fugo's grip, and peered into the cockpit. It was too late. The pilot had bit through his tongue and was dead. Whatever illusion he'd seen had been so terrifying he'd killed himself to get out of it without ever waking up. Morello was foaming at the mouth, his eyes rolling back in his head. There was no time. The sea was hurtling towards them. She leaned forward, grabbed the stick, and yanked, but it barely moved. There was no way to save the helicopter. She summoned Voodoo Child and had it kick Fugo out the door. The door snapped off and Fugo went flying after it, crashing into the sea below. They were still awfully high. If he woke, he'd probably survive. If not, Sheila E. threw herself out after him. She barely made it. A moment later, the helicopter hit the water and broke apart. A little later, she heard the engine explode. Water shot into the air. Sheila E. broke the surface, gasping for air. Fugo! She looked around. He was floating nearby. Awake? Asleep? She tried to swim towards him, but he was caught in a fast current and was drifting swiftly away from her. Sheila E. swam faster. She could do this. She'd swum in faster rivers as a child, she told herself. You can do it, she chanted, focusing her mind, keeping her stroke tight, swimming as fast as she could. Finally, she caught him. She grabbed his collar and dragged him onto some nearby rocks. His heart was beating, but he wasn't breathing. She tried CPR, pinched his nose, put her lips to his, and blew. On the fourth try, he coughed, spit up water, and started breathing again. His eyes opened. We made it. He looked around. Morello? And the pilot? She shook her head. Fugo grit his teeth and forced his emotions aside. What now? Sheila E. said. Call for help? Wait for it to get here? Fugo shook his head. No time. If they hit us like this, then... You mean, Morello said they were in Ortygia. If they had some reason to keep us out. Fugo nodded. Exactly. If they knew we were going to get there first, then all they had to do was go somewhere else. Kokaki was from Sicily. He hid something in Ortygia, or knew of something hidden there. Something our enemies are desperate to get their hands on. Light was fading from the sky above. It was almost night. Stand name Nightbird Flying. Owner Angelica Atanasio, 14. Destruction E. Speed A matches the target speed. Range A. Duration A as long as her illness. Control E. Potential E. Power. Locates and pursues souls and inflicts the final stages of drug addiction upon them. Attacks are as focused as Angelica's memories, but since she's a drug addict, it tends to attack a bit indiscriminately. A semi-automatic stand born of the sadness of being misunderstood. It looks like a little bird, flying out in search of human warmth. All right, helicopter down! Vittorio pumped his fist in the air. They're not all dead, Volpe said. The splash was wrong, too scattered. The door opened before it crashed. Somebody jumped. Angelica nodded. Nightbird flying is long range, and does what it wants, so I don't know exactly what happened, but I only felt one or two of them die. At least one of them definitely survived. Let's assume two. Fugo and Sheila E. But it slowed them down. That's enough. I'll do the rest, Vittorio said, slapping his hands together. Wait, Volpe snapped. Vittorio, you need to head to the site. Now. Huh? Why? We may have slowed them down, but Pashone knows we're looking for something now. One of us has to get our hands on the mask
before they find it. Of the three of us, you work best alone, have the strongest defense. We'll wait here and ambush them.
Let me do that, while the two of you... No, Vittorio. I can't move that fast,
Angelica said. Vittorio grimaced. She was too weak to run, to fight. He knew that. And Volpe couldn't leave her side. He had to watch her closely in case her condition worsened. It had to be Vittorio.
Don't worry, Vittorio,
she said, placing her hands on his cheeks. She pulled his face closer and kissed him all over.
We'll pin our hopes on you. You're strong. You can do it. I know you can.
She sounded like a mother talking to a crybaby child. Vittorio nodded.
Yeah, if I move fast enough, you won't be in any danger. You guys keep pulling back as you wait.
So we can meet up as soon as you find it, I know.
Right, let's do this.
They found a parking lot near the coast, stole a car, and headed towards the island of Ortygia. Sheila E. drove. Fugo had a sharp pain in his side. He'd cracked a few ribs on impact.
What could they be looking for? Information? Or a physical thing?
Fugo tried to think, but knew full well he had no answer. If this was like the turtle Diavolo had given Bucci, a way to completely hide themselves from pursuit, they were done for. They'd never catch them. Without Murillo's cards, they'd have no leads at all.
Anything but that. I'll have proven myself useless. They won't give me another chance. Mister will kill me.
Pashone must have other assassins to send after these guys. This was his last chance. Failure was not an option. This was the real reason he'd refused to call for help. He'd said something that sounded convincing, but truth was, he was just scared.
Any backup they send will come with orders to kill me. This is not a world where the incompetent survive. No exceptions.
Sheila E. would be fine. She had no previous failures. She hadn't betrayed anyone, hadn't fled in the face of danger. Mista trusted her. She'd get credit for tracking Volpe this far. That would be enough to save her, and if she played her cards right, she might even get promoted. All blame would be cast on Fugo, all credit would go to her.
Damn it, I've got to stop them. But what if I can't?
There was no point to thinking about it, but he did anyway. Could he run from it? He'd run from Diavolo, knowing he didn't stand a chance. But Giorno Giovanna had defeated Diavolo. Could he get away from him?
I killed Kokaki. I can't switch sides and join Volpe's team now. No. Why am I even considering that? This is stupid. This is the same thing I did last time. Thinking too much. That's why I couldn't get on the boat.
The thought surprised him. He couldn't get on the boat. Not didn't, but couldn't. Was it true? Had he actually wanted to get on the boat? Had he wanted to go with the others deep down? But if that was true, that didn't sound like him at all. Bucci had scouted him, counted on him to stay calm, pick the logical option, minimize losses.
No. Wait.
The gears were turning now. Why hadn't he been able to get on the boat? Because nobody had expected him to. Who hadn't expected him to? Bucci. But Bucci had told him to get on the boat.
No, he didn't say that.
I won't order you to come with me. I won't even wish for it. Those were his words. That's why Narancia had begged him to order him on board.
So I took him at his word. Since it wasn't an order,
Without direct orders, he was expected to choose the course with less peril. Take no unnecessary action until the next opportunity was made clear. Was that why he'd been frozen to the spot? He'd felt like he'd made up his own mind, but had he really been robotically conforming to the common sense drilled into his head since he was born? Fugo found himself clutching his shoulders, shaking like a leaf. He felt cold, and his teeth were chattering. Sheila E. glanced over at him.
You scared?
Fugo looked up, surprised.
Huh? You scared of Volpe? No, Truth be told, I'm not that scared of them,
she said bluntly. Fugo had not been expecting this. She didn't sound confident. She sounded like she didn't care.
I'm scared of what happens after,
she added.
After?
Fugo asked, staring at his hands. She didn't answer. Instead, she asked,
It was you, wasn't it? You killed him, right? The one who killed my sister, Illuso, with your purple haze. When I saw Kokaki die, I knew. It was just like Giorno said. It is the worst way to die. The most painful, horrible death. His flesh rotting and melting. He died the moment his neck broke, but the few seconds of consciousness he had left must have been painful enough to make him regret ever being born. I know you weren't trying to punish Illuso, but you did. I owe you, and Giorno, more than my life is worth. I know that, but...
A pained expression crossed her face.
It scared me. Watching you fight Kokaki, all I could do was stand there and look. It really drove home my own limits. Truth is,
Sheila E. sighed.
I thought he was right. I agreed with the things he was saying, and I knew I could never defeat him. That was his stand. No, it wasn't. His stand only worked on me because that thought crossed my mind. I can't fight someone if I think they're more right than me. That's my limit. But there's so many things in this world that can't be separated into right and wrong. If I was ever in a place where I had to decide to betray someone or not to betray them, I don't think I could keep following.
Fugo's eyes went wide.
What? What did you say?
She ignored him.
That point is going to come. I've sworn to live my life for Giorno. I know he's more right than God. But at some point I'm going to have to face him. And I won't be able to do that. I won't be able to cross that line, and all I'll be able to do is run away from it.
She looked ready to cry.
Sheila E., you're...
Fugo said, but before he could say more, the car in front of them turned suddenly. It didn't even try to brake, just flew straight off the edge of the cliff into the sea. It was clearly not an accident, and it wasn't alone. Car after car went flying into the sea or crashing into the wall. The car Sheila E. was driving lurched suddenly. A car had rammed them from behind, then turned to the wall and exploded. More cars were after them. Cars in front did U-turns and came head-on, scraping the side of their car as Sheila E. desperately swerved. Their car became more and more battered as they weathered the storm of freakish collisions.
This is her doing.
This had to be Angelica Atanasio's Nightbird flying. Had it found them? No, the effect was covering too large an area, too indiscriminate. It wasn't focused on them at all.
She's ready to take the whole town out with us. She doesn't care if hundreds of people die as long as it slows us down.
The sheer depth of the darkness in his enemy's mind terrified Fugo.
The enemy's power must be affecting us too,
Sheila E. said.
We were both injured in the helicopter crash. The endorphins flooding our brain are either slowing the effect down or countering it for the time being, but either way, it's only a matter of time.
Fugo prodded the pain in his side. It hurt, but the pain was comforting.
If we stop feeling the pain, then we're really in trouble.
What do? The closer we get to Ortygia, the less sane people we'll find. They'll be able to pick us out easily. But I guess we don't have a choice. We have to act quickly, make a frontal assault. Sheila E. slammed on the brakes. The car stopped so hard, Fugo nearly banged his head on the dash. His door opened. Voodoo Child stood outside, holding the door open. It grabbed Fugo by the collar and yanked him out onto the road. He scrambled to his feet. The door slammed shut.
I can't do this! The rest is up to you! Do what you can for Giorno, even if it isn't right!
She floored it, and the car roared away towards Ortygia.
No! Sheila E., you're gonna try a suicide run!
Hello everybody, thank you very much for listening to that episode. I realise it's a bit behind schedule as I had to attend to a sudden visit to America that was planned by my brother as a surprise. And then I had a sudden visit from the flu, which was not planned but was equally a surprise. So editing this and recording this and the whole business ended up being delayed quite a lot. But there's not much to say with this episode since about half of it was a hallucination given to Fugo, by Angelica Atanasio, whose stand was described in today's episode. Nightbird flying can give people the latter stages of drug addiction, thus inducing hallucinations and such. Which seems like a suitable enough stand for the girl. I don't think it's really out of character, but I don't think it really fits the traditional rules of a stand. But whatever, the author exerting his authority. That's authority for those of you guys who didn't realize. Anyway, the only really interesting thing I have to say about the hallucination is that there was no Giorno in it. When the entire group gets together, you'd expect that the person Bruno introduces right at the end would be Giorno, and Giorno would be the one coming into the group. But realize that Giorno is exactly the person that Fugo does not want to see. Giorno is the one who ushered in kind of this period of turmoil, and he's the one who ended it by killing Diavolo. To Fugo, Giorno is almost the personification of what fractured that team. Or so I'd have to assume from the fact that he wasn't in the hallucination and he wasn't part of Fugo's happy place. So it's interesting to see that Trish is part of that environment, and she was the one giving everyone cakes, and she was the one making everybody else happy. So kind of a weird juxtaposition there, especially given that Fugo actually blamed Trish previously for breaking up his relationship with Bucci. But again, that's just one interpretation of it. I'm not really sure how heavily I should be advocating this understanding. Anyway, the hallucination ends in kind of a cool way. I tried to make it as sonically entertaining as possible, since it is a pretty crazy moment to have that world that you've been living in just collapse. I really wanted to make it stand out, and so Kokaki's laughter is echoing in the background while Angelica's singing is kind of providing an oral foundation that the rest of the hallucination has been built up from. And I'm narrating the book on top of all of that, and so that was quite fun to do and to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it wasn't too overbearing and it didn't distract you from the actual audiobook. So, Fugo escapes the hallucination. We cut to a scene between the 3 remaining members of the drugs team, and Vittorio is tasked with retrieving the stone mask, which is going to be more relevant in the next episode, so keep your memory trained on that detail. Then we cut back to Fugo and Sheila E stealing a car, and yeah, we get some more character development between these 2 characters. Most importantly, I think, is that Sheila E actually realized that Fugo killed her sister's killer. Fugo killed Illuso. That the only way such a painful and horrible demise could come to pass is if Fugo unleashed his stand, his deadly virus, Purple Haze, onto some poor guy. And after witnessing it on Kokaki, she realized that Fugo must have killed Illuso, and she kind of has a boring response to this, in my opinion. She's not horrified or particularly redemptive of how much she enjoyed the fact that Illuso died a painful death, but rather she is appreciative of the fact that Fugo killed Illuso, and that's pretty much the most basic response that you could have imagined. She doesn't really question it. She isn't like, I immediately thought that Sheila E would be bloody horrified that anyone would have to die that way, even if it was her sister's killer. But she kind of has a very one-dimensional response. I was a bit disappointed, but nonetheless, I enjoyed the fact that it was acknowledged that such a horrible, painful way to die must have only come from Fugo. I like the fact that Sheila E figured it out herself, and I like the fact that the author actually mentioned it at all. We also see character development from Fugo, where he realizes his own faults as a character and why he couldn't get on the boat as opposed to why he didn't. He stops registering his inability to get on the boat as a choice that he made, and more as just a character fault that he should have triumphed over. And more than that, when Sheila E starts wondering about her own doubt in her ability to follow Giorno, which is another really good character moment, but I won't really get into it since I think the book does a pretty good job of communicating that itself. Fugo starts seeing himself in Sheila E, just as Narancia once saw himself in Trish. Fugo has started seeing himself in Sheila E, and he started understanding who he is by understanding more about Sheila E. And so again, that's a really good character moment, and I think it's building up to a really powerful emotional climax, as well as a literal climax in the fight against Massimo Volpe, Angelica Atanasio, and Vittorio Cataldi. So it's these 5 characters left, seemingly. Apparently, Canolo Murolo, our dodgy friend with the card stand, has been retired in the helicopter accident, which is a shame, but honestly, we really didn't get enough of his character to really feel anything at this point. Who knows, maybe he isn't dead, maybe we'll get some flashback on him that makes him a bit more likable, and we'll realize, oh, we really did miss him. Maybe we'll get some big redemptive moments from him in the later chapters. But for now, that has been this chapter. Not much to discuss, but it still ended up being a pretty long video. So I do apologize for these longer videos, but on the other hand, we are accelerating, dashing towards the finish line, and we are almost done with the audiobook. I'd say about 3 or 4 more videos, and the whole thing will be completely finished. So hold on to your seats, we're almost there. I'll try not to delay. It definitely won't be as bad as this video's delay. So stay excited, be sure to subscribe so you know as soon as the next audiobook chapter is out. And if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and comment your own thoughts in the comment section below, since those are always very, very fun to read. And I do appreciate interacting with you guys. So, bye.